My name is Jeff Campbell, and I am a seasonal interpreter at the Sand Creek Massacre National Historic Site in Kiowa County, Colorado. The process has been a long process. It's taken the better part of 150 years. But over the last 15 years, through partnerships between the National Park Service, the Northern and Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, the various state and local entities like Colorado Historical Society, the Kiowa County government, eventually a plan was devised to put together a National Historic Site. Congress aided that by creating 3 different congressional acts. One was to locate the site, the second one was to authorize the site, and the last was to establish a site, and that was done in 2006. In 1864, Cheyennes and Arapahoes lived out on the plains area of Colorado. What's now Colorado and western Kansas and parts of Nebraska. And some of those people lived up along the Front Range in your Boulder area and the Cache-la-Poot, so forth. They had been living in relative peace with the white man up to 1858 or so, and then the gold rush happened. Over the next few years, then tensions built between the white population, the miners, and the Indians, and so forth. And a lot of it had to do with who owned what land and who had rights to use the land. The Cheyennes and Arapahoes were chiefly Plains Indian people. Their economy was based on the buffalo, used as for all sorts of parts of their lives, everything from food to clothing to tools. Also, their economy was based on horse trade, and they were excellent breakers and tamers of horses, and that's largely what brought them into this area, according to one of the sons of William Bent. George Bent tells us that they came in here for the wild horses that existed in this area. By 1864, which is well into the Civil War period, the big Civil War, of course, is being fought back east of the Mississippi, but there was a large Civil War being fought west of the Mississippi as well. And Colorado wasn't unlike any other territory in the United States. They raised volunteer soldiers. Some of them fought in Missouri and Kansas and other places. Some fought in New Mexico. By 1864 then, there had been various attempts to make peace on both sides. Those peace negotiations apparently broke down. And depending on which story you read or believe, whatever, some people believe it was inevitable that a clash happened between the two cultures. In the fall of 1864, in September 1864, the Cheyennes and Arapaho leaders went to Denver to meet with the governor of the territory, John Evans. They had what would be probably a partially successful meeting, in that it wasn't said, no, we won't have peace, but you need to go into the protection of forts and so forth, like the proclamation he'd made earlier. They did so through mid-October of 1864, and they came into this area. About 1,200 came into this area around Sand Creek. Later, some of the Arapahoes moved down to Fort Lyon on the Arkansas River. Meantime, there were other forces at work. Soldiers were rallied in Denver and the South Platte, Boulder. Some were placed in Bijou Basin near modern-day Colorado Springs. And eventually an Indian expedition was organized, and it rendezvoused down on the Arkansas near what's now Boone, Colorado. Incidentally, that was named for the grandson of Daniel Boone, Albert Boone. On the 28th of November, a Colonel Shivington and a Colonel George Laird Shoup showed up at Fort Lyon, some say to the surprise of the soldiers at the fort, and they wanted to go on an expedition. They were surprised when they didn't find any Indians at Fort Lyon. So an expedition was planned to march north, and they came overnight. They marched up to Sand Creek, and early on the morning of the 29th of November 1864, an attack was initiated by the soldiers, about 675 soldiers with Colonel Shivington and Shoup. At the end of the day, there were about 200 Cheyenne and Arapahoes, mostly women, children, and elderly, had been killed. Another 200 probably wounded. Somewhere in the order of about 12 to 15 soldiers had been killed or wounded and would die of their wounds, and another 78 wounded. The aftermath of this tore Colorado apart. There were two sides to it. Some of the soldiers believed that there was an outright massacre here, and they even told reporters for like the Black Hawk Mining Journal. Others defended Sand Creek. As a result, an unprecedented thing happened, and as a result of this, is there were 3 investigations, 2 U.S. congressional investigations, and a military inquiry were instituted on this. And that had never happened in the Civil War with any other event, even though there have been many horrendous things happen in the Civil War. None of them had 3 investigations. Colonel Shivington and the soldiers, none of them were ever charged. No one was ever sent to jail. The United States government never denied that there was a massacre here, and the United States has never denied that they were responsible for what happened here, because these were United States volunteers. The story is very complex and takes a lot of time to look into and understand. And that's what we're trying to do here at the Sand Creek Massacre National Historic Site. We learn more each day, each year.